Hi everyone, this is audap. Let's continue our game of LoveKami Useless Goddess on Nintendo Switch. Her voice fell on my ears like the pure ringing of a bell. Yes, yes I am. May I ask how you know my name? Oh, thank you for your kind introduction. The local Earth Goddess. That must mean she's someone very important. But wait, the local Earth Goddess? What is an Earth Goddess doing here? She covered her mouth and gave a small laugh. The gesture seemed to suit her. She was worlds apart from a certain collapsing goddess. An errand, was it? I had a feeling that I knew what this was about. I had never even dreamed that a goddess might come to Tsubaki Apartments. But tonight, a certain guest was visiting. Yep, I was right. Oh, was it wrong of me to bring her here? The way she puts a hand on her cheek and sighed was the essence of humility. I don't think she's been a burden. Inori was so gentle. She was very easy to talk to, but in a different kind of way from Akane. Of course, right this way. I led Inori inside to find Akane. Inori bowed deeply to Micah. She wants to talk to Akane, apparently. She glanced at Akane. Akane had turned away. Her shoulders slumped as if her earlier cheer had never been. Inori drew near to her. Inori's expression hardened at Akane's shoe gesture. Huh? One would think goddesses would be able to talk peacefully, but it looked like a storm was brewing here. It was like a teacher arguing with a juvenile delinquent. I thought that goddesses were some mystical, elegant beings, different from humans. But judging from the back and forth happening right here, goddesses were no different from humans. Akane was now the angry one. Ugh, a blackout now? As if responding to Akane's anger, the lights went off and sent the room into darkness. If Akane went off went off in this darkness, who knows what might happen. I had to stop this somehow. Suddenly I heard the rustling of cloth and a figure leap up from the dark. Once my eyes were used to the dark, I could see Inori glaring at Akane. Huh? Who was this? Where did that meek, gentle flower of Japanese beauty go? I might have been imagining it, but it sounded like rain had started to pour down outside. They were starting to sound like children. I glimpsed to the side and saw Micah staring dumbfounded at the goddess fight. For the time being, if we didn't get things settled down, then the discussion would go nowhere. Okay, you two. All this shouting at night is... It was no good. Neither of them would listen to me. I might have to get rough, but it looked like it wouldn't stop until I got Akane restrained. Now listen up. You two have got to stop this fighting. Unable to see in the dark room, I tripped over a chair. I'm fine. I just ran into something. I had tripped, but I saved myself from falling by grabbing onto something. Something soft, and that smelled good. I could hear a captivating voice very nearby, and straining my eyes in the dark, I made out Inori's back. So the softness under my hands... No, wait, it was an accident. I'm sorry. I should have gotten away from her like Micah demanded, but it seemed so wrong to release the blissful softness that my hands were enjoying. And just as Akane said, I would have loved nothing more than to really squeeze. It was such a rare opportunity, I really wanted to savor the moment. Ouch! Just as reason and desire battled it out in my brain, Micah's thump on my head helped reason win, but it was close. I'm really sorry. I was down on the floor, groveling. It was a really bad thing to grope a goddess. Inori was kind enough to let me off easy, but if it had been anyone else, I'd likely be in jail. And at the very least, thanks to my little adventuring in groping, Akane and Inori weren't fighting anymore. Sweeping away the strained atmosphere, Inori straightened her back and took on a serious expression. Explain to us? I don't understand at all. What do the two have to do with each other?
まずはじめに、あかねさんはこの椿荘の屋敷神という神様なんです。
Household goddess? I'd never heard of the term before. What kind of goddess is that?
屋敷神は文字通り、建物を守護する神様です。あかねさんはこの椿荘専属の神様と思っていただければ問題ありません。
Eh? So a goddess had been watching over Tsubaki Apartments? Judging by Maiko's astonishment, she hadn't known either. But you're a goddess. Don't you live in a boarding house?
あるにはあると思うけど、権限してから一度も行ったことありません。
I remembered her saying she'd never been home once. She'd never been home once when we first met. If that's the case, then it's only natural Maika didn't know. I see. I get their connection now, so now what about you two?
私はあかねさんのお目付け役ですね。
A guardian? As I looked at the defiant Akane, I felt I understood the need. Yeah, I bet Akane really does need a guardian.
ちょっと、やっぱりってどういうこと？
それはあかねさんは屋敷神であると同時に、荒神と呼ばれる神様だからです。
Inori ignored Akane's protest as she continued speaking. Aragami? That sounds ominous.
物々しい。荒神とは、神様が持つ人力を制御できず、人に迷惑をかけてしまうような神様。荒ぶる魂を持つ神様。故に荒神というのです。
Jinriki is the divine power goddesses use. The happiness and goodwill of humans becomes sakimatama, which goddesses take as nourishment to make Jinriki. This information has been such a big news after the descent, I still remembered it years later. So basically, you have to stay close to Akane to make sure that her bad behavior stops. It might be putting it too frankly, but that seemed about right.
そうですね。椿荘の方々があかねさんのことを知らなかったのは、あかねさんが権限して以来遊び回っていて、一度もここに来たことがないからです。
That sounded like what Akane had said when we met.
だって私は荒神だよ。構成なんて必要ないじゃん。
あかねさん、あなたの力はとても強力で、大勢の人に迷惑をかけているんですよ。今日だって何度も停電を起こしてたじゃないですか。
Inori glared at Akane, who started to look sulky.
え、嘘？あの停電って茜が原因なの？
Maika was clearly surprised, but I had been thinking something like that for a while now. The blackouts happened like clockwork whenever Akane started to get worked up. And then, whenever she felt better, the power would snap back on.
そうです。ここ最近神奈議町周辺で頻発して起こっている停電は、構成から逃げ出したあかねさんの人力が暴走しているからなんです。
So, all the blackouts had been caused by an Aragami losing control of their Jinriki. But Akane's the household goddess here, right? Why does her power make the electricity go out? Usually a goddess's Jinriki is connected to the goddess's origin, according to legend. So Akane's power was connected to electricity, despite her being a household goddess.
あ、そういえば昔この場所には送電鉄塔が立っていたって聞いたことがあるわ。
Is that so? I've never heard anything about what was here before the apartments. I've been at home here since I was a child, but never thought much about what was here before.
その送電鉄塔が由来となったのがあかねさんの人力です。残念ながら、荒神として権限しているあかねさんは、電気を奪うことしかできないようですが、
Inori added, explaining more about Akane's Jinriki.
そして、そんな風に構成を拒否する態度をとって停電を起こしていたせいか、今日、あかねさんが逃げ出した時に一つの決定が下されました。これから2ヶ月以内にあかねさんが構成できなかった場合、神様から妖怪へと降格されることが決まりました。2ヶ月というのは、過去の構成のデータをもとに、1ヶ月で構成は厳しいだろうとの判断です。
I'd never heard of a goddesses becoming spirits before.
はいはい、合格ね。合格。それくらいなら。って妖怪に合格？私が？
Oh, yokai. I was wondering why they translated it to spirit, but okay.
はい、そうです。これは上司が決定したもので、私に覆す権限はありません。
Hearing this, Akane hung her head. So what exactly does that entail? Demoted to a spirit, huh? Judging by Akane's reaction, it must be something pretty serious.
そうですね。人力は失われると思います。こうして地上に権限していることもできなくなる可能性もあります。
Oh, that's... Basically, it meant Akane would disappear. I had no idea the punishment would be so harsh. The sulking Akane made a sound.
ふざけるなー。なんでそんなことになってるわけ？おかしいでしょ。
There was another blackout. However, since we finally knew the cause, Micah and I weren't all that concerned.
やだやだ、絶対にやだからね。なんで私が妖怪なんかにならなきゃいけないの？
ですから、更生していただければいいんですよ。
構成なんてやだ。妖怪になるのもやだ。
Her selfishness was almost shocking. Inori stared at her in amazement as well.
ねえ、なんとかできないの？地味神。あ？誰が地味神だこのニート神。
Inori lost it. Apparently, Dirt Goddess wasn't going too far.
こういう時に役に立たないと意味ないじゃん。だから私には権限がないって言ったじゃねえか。
She raised her voice, truly at the end of her patience. Inori, please calm down.
すみません。私としたことが、また心を乱してしまいました。
Luckily, this time she actually did calm down. If they had started fighting again, it could have been bad.
私だって、茜さんに妖怪になってほしくありません。私もお手伝いしますので、更生を本気で頑張ってください。
Inori continued, relaxing a bit, or having relaxed a bit. Akane, sulking heavily, was looking away, but glanced over every once in a while, like she was listening secretly.
そしてここからが、翔さんやマイカさんにも大きく関係してくる部分になります。茜さんが妖怪化した場合、椿層が取り壊される可能性があります。
取り壊し？
Torn down? Why would that happen? I'd never even considered that this place might disappear.
屋敷神がいなくなってしまうと、その建物を守る神様がいなくなってしまうということです。そうなれば、神様の力で守られていた建物にどんな被害が出るかわかりません。建物の老朽化で床が抜けたり、屋根が落ちる可能性もあります。もしかすると、もっと危険な可能性も。
Inori paused for a deep breath. Then she looked straight at us.
当然、ここに住まう人に被害が出てしまいます。
Huh?
皆さんに被害が出る前に取り壊してしまわないといけないんです。
The problem was worse than I expected. But it also sounded like one we couldn't really do anything about.
もし茜の構成が終わらなかったら、私たちはここを追い出されるってことですか？
そうなります。もちろんその場合は、次に住む場所はきちんと手配させてもらいます。
Inori was watching us carefully as she said this. This was also clearly part of her job. I doubt there are many people who would be happy to hear that they'd have to up and move like that. To say goodbye to the apartments after so many years after growing so comfortable here was unthinkable.
こんな形で突然お伝えすることになって、お二人には申し訳ないと思います。ですが、私が茜さんを立派に構成させてみせますので、任せてください。
But More than anything, I didn't want Akane to disappear. We'd only just met, but in that time I had grown to like the goddess. I couldn't accept the idea of her disappearing like that. Inori, it's just a thought, but could I perhaps help in Akane's rehabilitation?
ちょっとショー、どういうことよ。
Just what I said. We could help Akane get better. 2 is better than 1, and 3 is the best of all. If we help, it could make Akane's rehab that much easier. That way, we could keep Akane from becoming a spirit and protect Tsubaki at the same time.
構成を手伝うってなんでショーが？
She's talking about tearing down Tsubaki apartments, right? If we can do anything at all, we should.
そうね。でも本人がやりたくないなら別に構成しなくてもいいんじゃない？
I couldn't believe my ears. So you're fine with them tearing down the house?
そこまで考えてないわよ。ただ潰れちゃっても仕方ないとは思ってるわ。実際に椿荘にはショーしか住んでないじゃない。今まで椿荘はギリギリで生活できてる程度なのよ。まだこうして下宿先として機能してるのは奇跡よ奇跡。こんなボロい下宿なんて取り壊して駐車場とかにしちゃった方が地域のためよ。ついに来るべき日が来たってことかな。
She said it like this was nothing, but that couldn't be true. If the number of tenants was really a problem, they'd have torn it down the moment I became the last. I bet the only reason it's still here is because Micah had an emotional attachment to it, too. I can't accept Tsubaki getting torn down. I have to do what I can.
ま、そこまで言うなら別に止めはしないわよ。
She didn't seem particularly convinced, but she seemed to accept it.
お気持ちは大変嬉しいのですが、本当にいいんですか？
This problem affects us directly. Of course I want to help. Anyway, it was just me being selfish. Luckily, there was no school for the month, so I had plenty of time. There was nothing keeping me from helping.
ちょっと待った。私は構成するなんて言ってない。
But by your reaction, I'd say you clearly don't want to become a spirit, right? I don't want these apartments to close. I don't want to lose these apartments. You don't want to become a spirit. What's the problem?
それはそうだけど。
She didn't want to be demoted, but something inside Akane still couldn't accept it.
私は荒神なの。自由に生きてこその荒神なのに、個性なんて。いきなり何するのさ。
I thought I'd calm you down a bit. The blood was rushing to your head, right?
そうかもしれない。
Akane was pleading with upturned eyes, her cheeks red. She seemed to always wear a defiant, spirited face. It was refreshing to see her suddenly shy. I wanted to see more of that Akane, so I kept petting her head.
頭撫でるの。
You don't like it?
いや、撫でられるのは気持ちいいし、悪くないけど、気が抜けるという。もう、なんなのこれ。
When Akane was just the right level of relaxed, I began to talk. Hey, Akane, instead of thinking about rehabilitation, why not think about the satisfaction after? Just try it a little bit. I'll do everything I can to support you.
わかったよ、もう。ショーには助けてもらったし。少しだけなら頑張ってみようかな。
Thank you, Akane. Akane snorted a little and looked away, but her face then relaxed.
それで、そろそろ頭撫でるのはやめてほしいかな。いい加減恥ずかしくなってきた。
Oh, yeah, sorry. I took my hand off her head.
まあ、ちょっとくらいならいいんだけどさ。
I guess it was okay for me to touch her. The other two were watching me like I'd lost my mind.
翔さんって大胆な方なんですね。
Ah! Micah was being awfully harsh today.
まあいいわ。ショーの性格は今に始まったものじゃないもの。それより構成を手伝うなら、ショーは毎日2人の下宿先に通うわけ？あ、それだけど、今日から私ここに住むから。いきなりなんでよ。だって私椿荘の屋敷神だしね。いやー、こんなに居心地いい場所ならもっと早く来てればよかったよ。
あの、茜さんがこちらに住むのなら、監視役である私もここに住まわせていただけると嬉しいのですが。もちろんご迷惑でなければってことで、無理にとは言いません。
Naturally, it would make things easier if they lived together. Well, I think it's fine, but... I looked at Micah, who appeared to be mulling it over.
仕方ないわね。もういいわな。こうなったら好きにしてちょうだい。
Micah murmured like she'd given up.
ショー、
You need something?
2人が住むなら空き部屋に布団とか運ぶから手伝ってよ。
No problem. Leave it to me. And so two goddesses came to live at Tsubaki. Ooh, we got titles now. Yeah, it's amazing how much better this game runs. I wish they would have spent more time with Useless Goddess to get that game to, have a more solid frame rate. This one doesn't seem like it's going to have a problem. I wonder if it's just because it's like less animation than Useless Goddess. But I guess we'll see. Maybe once the 3 characters appear on the screen, that's when things will change. And then, I imagine if these sell okay, then we'll get the second game in the series too. So that way we're going to have all 3 of them. I think it's probably better that we didn't quite finish the 3rd game. That way we can play this one. And you know me, I love these romance visual novels. I think they're hilarious. Well, some of them. It was the day after Akane and Inori came to stay at Tsubaki Apartments. Taking a deep breath of the refreshing morning air, I walked along the corridor towards the living room. A lot had happened over the last 24 hours, but I'd slept like a log and felt much better now. This time yesterday, I'd never have imagined a couple of goddesses would be moving in with me. Whatever the reason, though, I was glad to have some new residents around, like in the old days. Can't let myself get carried away, though. From this day on, the future of Tsubaki was in my hands. I'd have to stay focused if I was going to get this right. I'll find a way to save this place. I know it. I gave my cheeks a quick slap to drive away the last of my early morning days. Okay, well, let's do this. Bracing myself, I opened the door to the living room. Good morning. Inori was already there, holding her head in frustration for some reason.
翔さん、おはようございます。
She seemed downhearted. Hey, is something wrong?
そうですね。その通りです。
I followed Inori's gaze and saw Akane sprawled on the floor watching TV.
あれ、そう。
She dimly registered my presence and gave a half-hearted wave. Morning, Akane.
おはよ
Akane replied in a sleepy tone of voice, making no move to get up. She sounded like she was ready to go back to bed at a moment's notice. I couldn't sense even the slightest trace of vitality from her. Guess you're not a morning person, huh? That explained Inori's exasperation. Rise and shine, Akane. You can't spend all day down there.
わあわあいいじゃんいいじゃんまだ朝なんだしさ
Oh, don't be like that. Today's the day we start getting your life back on track.
そんなこと言ったかもねでも時間はまだまだあるし別に急いで頑張らなくてもいいよね
Akane was already trying to wriggle out of the plan. I can't say I was surprised.
あかねさん、その頑張り始めるのはいつになるんですか？
私の気分次第かな今日かもしれないし明日かもしれないうふふまさに神の溝知るってやつだね
お願いですからやる気になってください。
やだ今そういう気分じゃない
Akane stuck to the floor and continued to refuse to do anything, even vaguely responsible. This was going to be harder than I thought.
あかねさん、合成しましょうよ。
残念今日は一日ゴロゴロするって予定が入ってるんです
No matter how hard Inori tried, Akane continued to resist any calls to action. At this rate, our rehabilitation scheme would be over before it even began. I tried to take a more firm approach. So, Akane, you're okay with becoming a spirit then?
昨日ちょっとだけ考えたんだけどさそうなった時はそうなった時だから別にいいんじゃない
Even my appeal to her sense of self-preservation fell on deaf ears. That was some next-level laziness. What was I supposed to do now?
みんな朝ごはんできたわよ
Micah's voice dispersed the gloom that had settled over us.
今日朝早くから祈りに起こされたからもうお腹ペコペコだよ
Akane leapt to her feet and dashed out of the room, her eyes sparkling with glee. Whoa. Hey, Akane! The conversation broke up without us accomplishing anything.
こんな調子で私はあかねさんを更生させられるんでしょうか。
Don't get so down. It's still only the first day, and you've got me to help. Inori looked a little happier when she heard that.
翔さん、そうですね。まだ1日目ですし、諦めるなんて早いですよね。
That's the spirit. Inori and I headed to the dining table with fresh determination. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Breakfast was over, and Maka had gone out on some errand. That left me and Inori to discuss possible strategies, while Akane returned to her spot in front of the TV. First and foremost, we've got to find a way to motivate Akane. We won't get anywhere if she doesn't want to cooperate. Right now, Akane's attitude was the biggest obstacle to her rehabilitation. If we just convince her to be a little more proactive, perhaps the rest would start falling into place.
とは言っても、どうすればいいんでしょうか。
Let me ask you this. What are we aiming for when we talk about reforming Akane? How would we know when we're done? Words like rehabilitation weren't a lot of help for visualizing a specific goal. From where I was standing, we had nowhere near enough time to get Akane to act more like other goddesses.
そうですね。少なくとも最低限人力の制御を覚えて暴走をなくしてもらうことが目標です。人力の制御さえできれば停電もなくなり、人の迷惑になることもなくなりますから。
How exactly would we get her to restrain her powers?
あかねさんの人力は感情に左右されているようです。まずは感情を制御できるようになることが一番の近道だと思われます。
Emotional restraint, huh? That didn't sound like something we could achieve in such a short time. There was another issue, too. I'd like to avoid bullying her into it. Is that okay?
それでは公正ではなくなってしまいます。私はあかねさんを従わせたいのではなく、少しだけ真面目になってほしいだけなんです。
That sounded reasonable to me. It wouldn't be right to ignore her feelings on the matter. We were left with the question of how to get Akane to apply herself while still respecting her free-spirited nature. I'm drawing a blank.
そうなんですよ。
Inori and I discussed things for a little longer, but neither of us could come up with a realistic plan. Just as we were reaching the end of our rope, Akane suddenly turned up the volume of the show she was watching.
続いては現在人気沸騰中のあの神様アイドルをご紹介します。
神様アイドル？
The screen showed footage of a popular young singer on her nationwide tour. Oh, yeah, I've heard of this girl. Everyone was talking about divine idols these days. They sang, they danced, they did everything. Micah had been telling me about them the other day.
アイドルですか。今はこのような活動をしている神様もいらっしゃるのですね。
The goddesses in the video stood on a shining stage, clad in a beautiful frilly outfit with a check design. Her performance was breathtaking, packed with otherworldly effects created by her jinriki.
神様がアイドルね。面白そうだけど、私には縁がなさそうだな。
Are you a fan, Akane?
気にはなるかな。あんなにたくさんの人に崇められるんだもん。
Oh, yeah. I imagine if you're looking for the more exciting scenes for this game, they are probably not going to be here. I'll be honest with you. I think I kind of like Nekapara, the family-friendly version. I did play the R18 version of Nekapara of all those games for Xvideos and Pornhub. But I don't know, it's kind of distracting because it's like such a cute story, and then it just kind of becomes like really lewd. I don't know, maybe I'm just not used to it. I just like it to be cute, and that's it. So I imagine that this is going to be the same thing. It's the same thing for Sakura Succubus, the 3 games that are now available on the Switch as well. Obviously, you can play the R18 ones on platforms other than Switch, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know, it's just personal preference, I think. Let's see here. Let's look at the log, I think. Let's see. I looked back at the TV. The camera had swung around to show the concert audience. Men and women, young and old, all kinds of people were there, cheering frantically. Between songs, they waved and chanted the idol's name, all competing for a chance to be noticed. Even watching it on the TV like this, I could feel all the excitement as if I were really there. Wait a minute. As we watched the concert, an idea started to take form. What if we tried to make Akane an idol? She obviously liked that kind of thing. Maybe this could be the key to motivating her. A local idol would benefit the community too. That sounded like something Inori superiors would approve of. Plus, it might teach Akane some self-control, making less blackouts. We didn't have any other plans at the moment. I could at least suggest it. Say, Akane? If you're interested, why don't you try becoming an idol yourself? She sounded confused. You said you were curious, right? About having that many followers? Well, what if you could experience all that firsthand? Akane raised her eyebrow. I already knew it was useless trying to get her to do anything she didn't want to do. But maybe we could find something productive that Akane would also enjoy. And that's not all. You could get to wear all kinds of cute outfits, and fans would send you gifts and stuff. I'd help you out, of course. What do you say? It's worth a try, right? Akane's eyes widened in excitement. Alright, I finally managed to get her motivated about something. And this was gonna work. I just knew it. Inori brought us back down a notch.
歌や踊りに関しても心配ですし、アイドルが着るような可愛い衣装は茜さんに似合わないですよ。
なんでそんなこと祈りに言われなきゃいけないの？
私は思ったことを口にしただけです。
なんだと？
Whoa, time out. Flying off the handle like that isn't going to win you any fans. I did my best to calm Akane down before things escalated again. Come on, give me a smile. We'll take things one step at a time. Let's start by trying to curb your temper. How's that sound?
そうだね。少しずつでいいなら余裕だよね。わかった。
Akane's anger disappeared and her face broke into a smile. I think we dodged a bullet there. Okay, what's next? I guess you should learn a little more about human society. If you're going to attract fans, you need to be able to empathize with them.
それもそっか。じゃあ、ショーたちと生活も合わせるから。いろいろと助けてよね、ショー。
Sure, I'll do my best to support you from now on.
やる気出てきた。よっしゃー、やるぞー。
Akane had thrown off her lethargy and was now raring to go. Were you trying to rile her up on purpose? After Akane dashed out of the room, I confronted Inori over her objections. They had sounded a little staged somehow. Anyone would get mad at you for saying that kind of stuff, not just Akane.
すみません。茜さんを更生させるには、はっきりと我慢するという行為を自覚させた方がいいと思いまして。
Inori was prepared to offend Akane if it meant helping to reform her in the long run. That was so like her. You didn't have to set yourself up as the bad guy. Her dedication was admirable, but it was going a little too far to try and shoulder all the responsibility herself. I wouldn't want to drive a wedge between the two goddesses, even if it was for Akane's sake. I know rehabilitating Akane is important, but don't forget, we're in this together.
そうですね。私のことも気遣ってくださってありがとうございます。
Inori favored me with a bright smile and a graceful bow. That settled that. Do you think your boss will go for this plan?
そうですね。正直なところ、あの方がこれで納得してくれるのか怪しいところではあります。でも、一度話をしに行ってみようと思います。
We had to try. For the time being, that was all we could do. Thanks. I'll leave that part up to you. Our strategy meeting ended, this time with the decision to center Akane's rehabilitation around an idol career pending approval from the higher-ups. For all we knew, they might still shoot down the idea. My heart pounded while I waited for Inori to get back. She finally did a few hours later.
ただいま戻りました。
Hey, Inori, how'd it go?
許可出ちゃいました。
From what she said before, I thought our proposal had a pretty high chance of being rejected. I was surprised it got approved so easily. We weren't even given any special conditions to work under. It was kind of an anticlimax, but I was glad we could proceed as planned. Tomorrow we'd officially start work on Akane's rehabilitation.
よっしゃー、やるぞー。
A couple of days had passed since Akane decided to rehabilitate by aiming to be an idol. She set her objectives and began with training, but still lacked the knowledge. In order to fire Akane up, I was up late researching about idols.
すごいあくびね。
I went to bed late last night.
本当に熱心ね。でもほどほどにしなさいよ。ショーが夜更かししすぎて体を壊す必要なんてないんだからね。
Right, I'll be careful. By the way, where's Akane and Inori? Akane was understandable, but it was unusual not to see Inori.
みのりさんは私が起きたのと同じくらいに報告があるとかで出かけたみたい。あかねはまだ見てないわね。
Maybe she overslept. I wanted Akane to get used to the human lifestyle after living freely as an Aragami. Seems like it's going to take a while for her to adjust.
もうすぐ朝ごはんできるから呼んできてくれない？
Alright, I'll be right back. I left and headed for Akane's room. Hey, Akane, wake up already. I knocked and called her name, but got no response. She's not gonna wake up like this. I touched the doorknob and found it was unlocked. I knew Akane was the type who wouldn't care, but was it okay for me to enter a girl's room without permission? But I could easily see her pouting about missing breakfast if I didn't wake her up. I gotta wake her up. Hey, Akane, I'm coming in. After much contemplation, I put my hand back on the doorknob. Alright, why don't we stop it there? This is on apostrophe. You've been watching LoveKami, Useless Goddess on Nintendo Switch. Like I said, we'll play through as much as we can. I don't think this game is too long, so we might be able to complete it. And then I'll probably wait for the second game to come out before we go back to that third game. Maybe by then they'll do some patching on the third game. Who knows? But anyway, I think it's a cute story. Yes, while this may not be the R18 version, I think we can still have some fun with it. We had fun with Necroparta too, so yeah, I imagine it'll still be okay. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.